Symbolism in Blake's poetry. Symbolism means the use of symbols to represent certain ideas. A symbol is a person, place, or thing in a narrative that suggests meaning beyond its literal sense. Symbol is different from allegory in that an allegory represents a single additional significance, one largely determined by convention. On the other hand, a symbol bears multiple suggestions and associations. Allegory seems like a mechanical translation of abstraction into forms, whereas symbol seems like a glimpse into a higher truth. Therefore, symbolism lends depth and richness to art and, for that matter, to poetry and other genres of literature. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the symbolism in Blake's poetry. Many of Blake's poems convey a simple meaning on the surface and a richer meaning at a deeper symbolic level. We will start our discussion with Blake's Songs of Innocence and round it off with his Songs of Experience. The Songs of Innocence were written in pastoral tradition. The dominating idea of most pastoral is the search for the simple life, away from corruption, war, strife, and love of gain. In a way, it reveals a yearning for a lost innocence, for a pre-fall paradisal life in which man lived in perfect harmony with nature. For Blake, pastoral tradition was not merely the depiction of innocence and unspoiled way of life. It was also a vehicle for exposing moral and social evils. The Songs of Innocence were written in reply to Isaac Watts's Divine Songs for Children. Though these divine songs were written for the edification of children, they carried the seeds of racial discrimination and advocated a strictly denominational approach in religious matters. For example, in the Divine Songs for Children, Isaac Watts boasted of his bigoted type of Christianity in these words: "Lord, I ascribe it to thy grace, and not to chance as others do, but I was born of Christian race and not a heathen or a Jew." It means Watts was immensely complacent in his assumptions of spiritual superiority and had little regard for people belonging to other religions or races. Moreover, in these songs, Watts recommended self-mortification for the development of character. He implied that virtue was an unpleasant hard work and highlighted the need to cut back on natural instincts. Now, all such assumptions suited the puritanical caste of Christianity prevalent in the 18th century. So the divine songs found favor with sober-minded parents. As a reaction against Watts' divine songs, Blake set out to produce the Songs of Innocence. In contrast with Watts' strictly denominational religious approach, Blake adopted a non-denominational religious approach and spoke for the whole humanity. For instance, in the divine image, Blake says, "And all must love the human form, in heathen, Turk, or Jew, where mercy, love, and pity dwell, their God is dwelling too." It is quite clear from these lines that Blake preaches love for the whole humanity, whereas Watts talks about other religions and races in derogatory terms. Blake shows a cosmopolitan outlook on life. As far as the language of the poem is concerned, it is simple without powerful emotive overtones. As a matter of fact, Blake deliberately wrote simple poetry for the sake of irony. So the overall impression of the poem comes from the contrast between Blake's cosmopolitan outlook and Watts' limited perspective. And now the symbolic aspect of the poem. It is difficult to have a complete understanding of the symbolism of Blake without having an understanding of his art as an engraver. His poems are not merely confined to written words, they are complemented by illuminations. These illuminations are etchings on the raised copper plates. In many cases, the illuminations enlarge upon the apparent meaning of the text. They sometimes contradict the text and sometimes function as commentary for the elucidation of the text. Similarly, the symbolic aspect of the divine image is complemented by its illumination. The illumination of this poem consists of an upward swirl, half flame, half vegetation. The flame is a symbol of desire, which is an expression of life energy. The vegetation refers to the world of generation, life in a physical body. The illumination suggests that human desire should not be suppressed. On the contrary, it should be given free expression. Therefore, human beings can only fulfill themselves if they give full expression to their desires. The Chimney Sweeper. The Chimney Sweeper is also an apparently simple poem with deep ironic overtones. The lot of chimney sweepers was one of glaring evils of the late 18th century, when old apprenticeship system had fallen into decay and was being widely abused. Blake, as well as many of his contemporaries, have condemned this evil. During the course of the poem, Tom Dacre, the chimney sweeper, has a dream in which he sees an angel which releases him from the wretched life, and he runs free across the green countrysides and bathes in streams. And then he awakes and the poem ends. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. The poem is both a celebration of the flight of imagination and a terrible indictment of the attitude of the contemporary society, as the ironical overtones suggest. Tom Dacre, for instance, is comforted by his dream, but when he awakes, he is still a chimney sweeper and still a slave of the same system. The Echoing Green. The Echoing Green is a poem which is apparently about the innocence of childhood, but the illumination of the poem suggests that there is more to it than meets the eye. The illumination shows a youth giving a large bunch of grapes to a girl. The bunch of grapes is a recurrent symbol in Blake's work for sexual fulfillment. So the illumination suggests that spontaneous sexual desire is innocent. Now let's move on to the songs of experience. In 1794, Blake combined the songs of innocence with the songs of experience in one volume with the overall title Songs of Innocence and of Experience, showing the two contrary states of the human soul. There is a dialectical relationship between songs of innocence and songs of experience. They present two contraries and they point to a synthesis. Certain poems from songs of experience have been paired with certain poems from songs of innocence. A divine image from songs of experience, for instance, is paired with the divine image which belongs to the songs of innocence, as opposed to the songs of innocence, which are about the innocence of man in the condition of unity. The songs of experience are marked by the condition of duality or separation. For instance, the first four lines of A Divine Image read, "Cruelty has a human heart, and jealousy a human face, terror the human form divine, and secrecy the human dress." This poem is about hypocrisy, which is quite opposite to innocence. Before his fall, man lived in a state of innocence because he was fully integrated. That is to say, he lived in perfect union with nature. After his fall, man lost his innocence and his positive virtues assumed a negative aspect. A poison tree, which is another poem from the Songs of Experience, also shares the same assumptions. It means the union, the oneness achieved in the world of innocence proves illusory, like the dream of the chimney sweeper in the world of experience. So, the disillusioned man has